From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
From our podcast studio in Raytown, Missouri, which is really difficult to get to, which is why we feel really safe here, because you'd never find this place. You really wouldn't. We have the two words, and by the time you see this podcast, when it's posted, we'll know a lot more. But the two Latin words that we start with today are Habemus, Papam. Do you know what that means, Kurt?
Pope, new pope.
We have a pope.
Ah.
So after 4 ballots, the Cardinals have made their decision, and we're going to keep up with it because at this point, as we start the episode, the new pope has not come out onto the balcony yet, so we don't know which cardinal has been elected, and we don't know which name he will be called by. So we're going to keep tabs on that. Meanwhile, we'll tell you about all the other fun stuff going on here. It is brought to you in part by another good Catholic, Bob Watson, at State Farm Insurance, 7th and Main in Blue Springs. You can reach him at 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance, those boats that are going out on the lakes as we get closer to Memorial Day weekend. Bundle your home and car insurance and save even more with My State Farm Agent. Bob Watson's been a State Farm agent for nearly 51 years, and he's ready to give you a rate quote today. Our next live event is coming up on Tuesday, May 20th at Funhouse Pizza in Lee Summit. Spread the word on this because it's all going to be about Jackson County, with 3 Missouri state reps from Jackson County trying to do something about the mess that we find ourselves in. It's going to be a lively discussion about property taxes, making the assessor position elected, and ultimately packing our bags and leaving and setting up our own county. Ron Fowler, dear friend of mine, Carolyn Caton, who was a guest on this podcast when she ran, and Mike Steinmeier are going to be there answering my questions and your questions. So please bring questions for these folks. It's the state-level view of Jackson County. All right. Also want to again mention the slain KCFD firefighter paramedic Graham Hoffman, who has been laid to rest now. We still have so if you watch this podcast or listen to it on Friday, you will still be able to get to the link to get the T-shirts, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirts as well. That it's all we can do. Graham didn't have a family. At least he wasn't married or kids, but obviously he has parents, a brother and a sister, and they're missing their brother and their son. And about the only thing we can do is throw money at it and show our support by wearing these shirts when we get them. So check that link out on the podcast Facebook page. We would really appreciate it if you would do that. Meanwhile, this woman who has been charged with his murder, she goes into court, Kurt. Now, remember, I'm not even going to give her name because this is the woman who had previously been arrested for biting a police officer, and they let her go.
Yeah.
Right? And so they find her walking along the side of the road. She's bleeding. This ambulance stops. This hero, Graham Hoffman, wants to help her, wants to give her care on the way to the hospital, and she stabs him in the chest. So she goes before the judge and says, I'd like my bond reduced. Yeah. But while you're at it, I'd like to do work release. I don't, I got a job. I can't really do my job from being in jail and all that. I know I killed this guy, but, whatever. And they've continued that. They didn't make a decision because that's how Jackson County rolls. Actually, this is a different county. Isn't this Clay County? I believe it's Clay County. We just keep putting criminals back out on the street.
Yeah.
What? She bit a cop. I mean, they're giving her all these tests too, like HIV and all the tests, right, because she bit a cop.
Right.
This cop would like to know, what he needs to get antibiotics for.
That's crazy to think about that. That you have to test for that. But I mean, yeah, you never know. Can't be too safe, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. So you're watching the Twitter feed?
No, I have a AP live stream up right now. It's just a bunch of people waving. So.
We don't know. Okay. It's been that way for a while. So we're just going to keep up on it. I'm very interested in this because, as you know, I was one of, being a Catholic male, I was in the running.
That's true. You were.
Much like Joe Biden, and we'll get to that later on.
Yes.
Donald Trump, as much as he would like to have been, even putting up the picture, not a Catholic, so not eligible for the papacy. Just saying. All right. Something else we're just saying, and we say it a lot, is 45 is the new 50. Have you had your colonoscopy yet? You need to get it. I'm telling you, because when they get in there and there's polyps and they send those off to be tested, you're catching something very early. And the best news of all, the news I've gotten the last 2 colonoscopies I've had, you have no polyps. We'll see you in 5 years, 5 to 10 years. It's 5 years for me because my mother had polyps. If you have a clean bill of health and there's no history of cancer, you get a 10-year break from your next colonoscopy. But I got to tell you, even those are getting easier. Mark Taramina is the man. Midwest GI Health and Wellness on the web at midwestgihealth.com. You can reach him at 816-836-2200. On the web, I said, is midwestgihealth.com. They are 4.9 out of 5 stars, the Google rating, the highest in Kansas City. They will take care of you. You don't need a referral from your regular doctor. You just call them up and say, hey, time to schedule my colonoscopy. They'll get you right in. Man, it's like it's an assembly line there. When I had my last one, I mean, it looked like, I don't want to say Newark Airport because I know Newark Airport is in the news right now, but it looked like, let's say Atlanta, where you've got like 15 jets ready to take off, man. It was just back to back to back to back beds all the way down the hallway.
I hope they clean the tools.
Next. Well, especially
put on some fresh gloves.
Especially if you get the upper and the lower.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you get the upper first.
Yeah, right.
I guess that's how that math works. Something else to keep in mind, if you are approaching 65 or someone in your family is, Kirk Doris at Medicare Simplified KC. They take the complicated Medicare, and it doesn't matter whether there's Republicans or Democrats running the show. This is a government program, so it is muy complicated. That means very, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I tried out my Latin earlier. I took 3 years of Latin.
That's pretty
Which
good.
would have made me a great candidate for Pope.
Yeah, except for the whole celibacy thing. We talked about that last week.
I would have been a great Pope back in the Borgias days. Do you know who the Borgias were?
No.
Oh, it's a great series on HBO you should watch because it takes you back to, when the Borgias were kind of running things. And they had wives, they had girlfriends, they had kids. It was definitely a good time to be Pope. Not so much anymore. Yeah. Where was I? Oh, Kirk Doris, Medicare Simplified KC. He's ready to help you make simple what is complicated. Which plan do you take? What supplements, if any, do you need? He's walked a bunch of people through this, and he's ready to walk you through it as well. Just don't be scammed. That's one of Kirk's biggest fears, is that you're going to get scammed out there. If somebody calls you and they're trying everything they can, and it must work at some level, because they keep doing it, right? And the elderly are the most
prone
to do that. Yeah. So let's don't do that. Let's watch out for the elderly and get them to Kirk Doris, who will explain Medicare. You'll be dialed in. You'll make the right decisions. 816-701-6661. You go to him. He'll come to you. It doesn't matter. Just get a meeting on the calendar with Medicare Simplified, KC.com. All right. The disconnect on the left, boy, it continues. And Kurt, must be so frustrated right now because they see Donald Trump's poll numbers plateauing and maybe sinking a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Because any president who comes in, they come in with a lot of hope and promise and all that, and shit happens. Things don't work out exactly as you want to. I was a little more worried maybe than you were about the whole tariff issue, and that seems to have Wall Street going the wrong way. And if you're somebody who is in my stage of life and you start looking at things you were going to start to convert to income producing things, we're still in growth. And it's like, oh man, are we going to take a big haircut here?
Right.
So you worry about stuff like that. So his poll numbers slipping a little bit, but the Democrats' poll numbers aren't coming up. They don't like the Democrats. Maybe they like Trump a little bit less, but they don't like the Democrats. It's crazy.
It kind of goes back to the incumbency and like approval ratings generally.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about this before, but like approval ratings for Congress are always just extremely low, like 5%, 10%, something like that. But then they keep electing the same people that had been in there for like 30 years.
That's the old thing of, they hate Congress, but they love their congressman.
Right.
That's why Cleaver keeps getting reelected.
Yeah.
And because they hate Congress. But old Manuel, he's doing good stuff for us in there.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a default thing too. People just pull the lever for what they know. They vote for what they know, So
I heard Schumer's numbers are really, really low.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Not surprising at all. So let's take a look at some things here. Gavin Newsom, I think, pretty well states the problem. Even if he doesn't have any solutions, he's pretty good at stating the problem.
We got crushed. We lost. We lost the popular vote, and we lost the electoral vote. We got crushed. And we need to be humble about that, and we need to have some grace, and we need to understand why. Was it because of the incumbency penalty? Was it because of inflation? Was it because of interest rates? Was it because of immigration? Was it because we were too, quote unquote, woke? Was it because of issues with Israel? Was it all of the above? I think we are going through that forensic. We need to understand. At the same time, we also have to push back against the whitewaters and headwinds of the Trump administration.
Okay. So he's a candidate for president in 2028. You think he's going to be the nominee?
I think he's a force to be reckoned with. And again, I cannot stress this enough, the absolute psychotic body language from this guy. He had the Patrick Bateman, comparison that's made all the time is pretty, Patrick Bateman.
I don't.
I think it's Bateman. Patrick Bateman, yeah, from American Psycho.
I know Jason Bateman.
Christian Bale's character in American Psycho. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It just looks like something I wouldn't want to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, but it's funny. It's kind of a dark comedy in some ways, but it's very dark. But yeah, he just his eyebrows, he has these eyes, and then he's like, and then we push a little bit further, and we got to figure it out. And it's like, oh man, there's something hidden behind those eyes.
But what does he stand for? Have you ever gotten anything out of him about what he stands for?
No, he's just he's a politician. He's a very, very good politician, which is why I think he's a threat. I mean, he knows how to spin. I mean, he's out there after the complete disaster of California during COVID.
Yeah.
Now he's out there playing damage control. He's crossing the aisle. He's having Charlie Kirk on his podcast. And, people have a short attention span. So they're going to, by the time it comes around that he's going to run for election, they're going to forget about it. And then when people bring it up, he's going to have some prepared line that is just going to totally dismiss it. And
well, if this country wants to go back to the prepared canned politician and all that, and the slick politicians out there, I guess it could happen. It probably will happen at some point. We had one of our keyboard warriors post something about, so now Trump says I don't have to follow the Constitution, and I hate wading into these waters because you get back and forth. It just raises my blood pressure, and it's not really worth it. And it's a guy I went to high school with, and I said, that's not really what he said. I know it works well for your narrative, but that's not really what he said. What he said was, I'm not a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. I pay all these people to tell me what's constitutional and what's not. Right. Do you think Joe Biden really understood everything that he was doing? And really, would we want to go back, to a Joe Biden who rarely had any kind of a press availability? And when he did, remember, he always came out with, well, they tell me I got to call on this person. And he knew exactly what the question was going to be. And he had his canned answer. With Trump, you get press avails several times a day, and you never know what in the hell he's going to say.
Well, I think the Biden thing too is just, I think Gavin Newsom's probably a more talented politician than Joe Biden.
Well, he's a lot younger.
And he's a lot younger. That's the thing. It was really an age thing, not necessarily a political talent thing. Biden's been around for 200 years. He knows his way around the block. He knows how to spin. He knows how to give answers. It's just that he couldn't because of how old he was. But I think a Gavin Newsom, especially because he's doing this media thing with the podcast and he's talking to all people across the aisle and stuff like that, I think you might see more of that from him, where he'd be willing to sit down in front of the media or have an interview or have press availability and stuff like that, because he's just so quick on his feet that he can spin off the cuff. He has the talent, the real political talent to really spin.
I just wish that they would say something worthwhile in a policy area. Do we have a pope? Habemus Papam. Here he comes. I have no idea who that is. Surely somebody would identify him. This is why you need to watch on YouTube, because sometimes we just go with whatever the video.
This is happening live.
Annuncio vobis
Maybe he's just announcing.
Magnum.
Yeah. That's not the Pope.
Yeah.
Habemus Papam.
That means we have a Pope.
Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
Don't know what any of that means.
I don't either. But we're going to see the new Pope. These are the cardinals who were not elected who are going out onto the balcony. To the right of the main balcony. They'll also come out on the left there. They're probably smiling because they don't have to be Pope. That is a tough gig.
Yeah.
And it's a lifetime gig.
Oh,
we're out.
Your
They
membership
kick us out.
is
They
more
kick
than
us
just a
out.
card.
Oh, come
It's your
on.
gateway to
All right.
Ads. Hold on.
Well-
I'll pull it back up in a second.
Pull it back up in a second. Where were we? They're not offering any policies that we could talk about. All they're doing is doubling down on the things that we know don't work for them. Right. They should know they don't work for them because they're dying on hills that are like 80-20, 90-10 hills, like siding with illegals over American citizens. They're still doing that. And the clueless media that covered for Biden reverses course now and covers up. They're all putting out books, which is why you've seen Joe go out on a tour, because he wants to get ahead of this, because the books are coming out from all the people who covered for him when he was president and said, oh, he's running circles around everybody in the White House. He's the best speaker we have in the White House. And now they're going, how'd this happen? Well, you helped make it happen. And then you've got 60 Minutes. This is actually a couple of weeks old, but I wanted to talk about it last time and I forgot. But their longtime producer left the show because of what they call the Trump effect. And play the clip from
CBS News.
CBS News, right.
The executive producer of 60 Minutes resigned last week, and last night's show took a moment to address the departure of Bill Owens.
Stories we pursued for 57 years are often controversial. Lately, the Israel-Gaza war and the Trump administration. Bill made sure they were accurate and fair. He was tough that way. But our parent company, Paramount, is trying to complete a merger. The Trump administration must approve it. Paramount began to supervise our content in new ways. None of our stories has been blocked, but Bill felt he lost the independence that honest journalism requires. No one here is happy about it, but in resigning, Bill proved one thing. He was the right person to lead 60 Minutes all along.
Okay, I want to dissect that a little bit because he said none of our stories were pulled.
I was just going to say that.
None of our stories. They were looking over our shoulders a little bit because they've got this big merger coming up. But you tell me a media company that does not have someone at a management level overlooking what you're doing.
Yeah.
But again, the bottom line is none of our stories were pulled. They were bashing Trump. They're part of the, 93% of negative coverage he's gotten since January 20th?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this briefly, but we know what happened during COVID. Again, to go back to that, I mean, it's not just CBS. It's not just the liberal news stations. It's Fox News, too. They had something like 60% of their ad revenue coming from pharmaceutical companies. Yep. So they weren't allowed to talk about the COVID shot in certain ways. Tucker's talked about this at length. It's one of the reasons why he left. So it's not like Trump is just like, oh, you can't be critical of me, because then they would have like every single story is critical of Trump. So
there's nobody watching over our shoulders to do what we do, unless I'm going to name check a former friend of mine, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to get sued. So we did have to sit through that, but they're not coming at us. And at the radio station we work for very liberal people,
right?
And they're like, do what you do. Just know that it's always going to be out there. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. Then speaking of 60 Minutes, you remember the famous episode where Kamala gave a word salad answer to something, and 60 Minutes cleaned it up, right, to make her seem more cogent.
Yep.
Donald Trump sued them for $20 billion, and that's still making its way through the courts. But this is how tone deaf and clueless they are on the left, especially the Hollywood left. That episode with Kamala was nominated for an Emmy.
It's crazy. And we'll play the clip again. We played it before, but it's just so ironic that it's the same show.
Yeah.
It's not even like relevant. It's the same show. So the guy left because after not being censored at all, and yet he is actively, manipulating interviews. The hypocrisy couldn't be more obvious. But here's the old clip that we played a few months ago, and you can see her full answer on top and then the edited answer on the bottom.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it was actually, I saw this on Twitter somewhere, so take this with a grain of salt. I don't know if this is actually true, but somebody was saying that answer that they edited in was an answer to a question about Ukraine.
Right. It was. They took it from another thing.
They took it from a totally different segment.
Yeah.
And, it's also the trick. I mentioned this before, but as the producer of the podcast and as a guy that pays attention to these things, that's why you have multiple camera angles. You have a wide shot, and then you have one on each person at least.
Yeah.
So, if you're watching on YouTube, I could say, hey, Dale, what'd you have for breakfast? I could say, hey, Dale, what'd you have for breakfast? And then cut to you, and it could be a totally different part of the episode. We don't do that because we don't, make those kind of edits here, but you can very easily just cut and
What
paste.
do you do to make me look better? That's the question.
I usually put a puppy filter on your face.
Well, here's what we need to do, though, on our side. We need to keep pushing back because they've got the wrong answers, right? And especially my liberal friends who are keyboard warriors, and they put out this crap every day. First of all, get a life. I mean, this guy as president has very little control over your everyday life. You really need to be thinking about school boards and city councils and mayors and things like that. But you're wrong in the things that you're saying. They say, well, Trump's acting unconstitutionally. Ask them what I asked them. Which article and or amendment is he violating? Please state the case. That's what they always said to us in constitutional law when I was in college. State the case. And if you can't state the case, shut the fuck up. They didn't, maybe they did say that to us in college. I don't know. So I have done that, right? And I was going back and forth with one of our friendly keyboard warriors, and he finally, I'm like, you get that separation of powers is not a district court judge over here in this blue district who has no one in his court withstanding, right? This is not a lawsuit. He just wakes up one morning and says, I don't like what Donald Trump is doing. And so I'm going to put an injunction on him. That is not separation of powers. Separation of powers is the Supreme Court of the United States and the president and the Congress. Now, maybe some of this stuff is a little bit murky. Congress is trying to wrap their arms around that to pull in these district court judges because it's wrong on both sides. We've played the cut with Elena Kagan, where she said it's wrong when Republicans do it to Joe Biden. It's wrong when Democrats do it to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. It's wrong. And she is a liberal. And this guy goes, well, any judge in this country could have a say on something like that. I'm like, you are really smoking crack, because what you are basically saying is any governor of a state could veto an act of Congress.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's co-equal branches at co-equal levels.
Yeah.
So like the top level of the judicial branch and the top level of the executive branch or the legislative branch. And within that, there's certain, rules and obviously that are set up by the Constitution. But it's the same reason that sanctuary cities, for example, is illegitimate and illegal, because you can't have a smaller jurisdiction of a city or a state saying that they're not going to enforce federal immigration law that has been passed by Congress and enacted by the executive branch through the department, the Department of Justice or DHS or whatever. So, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, and I think we know this, they don't like him. They're not going to like anything he does. I put up a picture on the Facebook page that showed, I think it was AOC and Elizabeth Warren drinking food dye because Robert F. Kennedy said it was bad for you. So they were going to go out and drink it. That's just...
Is this the Pope? Yeah. We might have a Pope here. Somebody standing up there.
I don't know if that's the Pope or not.
He's waving.
Oh, he's got the white hat on, so that's the Pope.
Who is it?
I have no idea. It's not Robert Sarah, because he's black.
He black.
And he was my pick. I'd love to see a conservative Pope this time. And the joke going around is maybe they'll get a Catholic Pope this time. Got to be careful, because some non-Catholics don't seem to have a sense of humor.
So I guess we got to look up the guy's name because
Do you have a name? Let's see what I got on my phone here.
We can continue. I'll pull it up.
I just got a text alert. Let's see. Cardinal Robert Provost. Is he an American? We got an American Pope.
Robert Prevost.
American Pope taking the name of Leo the 14th.
Huh.
So there you go. Leo the 14th, the first American Pope. So I got close. They got to my country, but I was still not selected.
Yeah, I think that's as close as you're going to get.
So Pope Leo the 14th. Interesting. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. Get over it. Elections have consequences. The great Barack Obama said that. We won, you lost, and Trump won't be on another ballot. So who's your boogeyman going to be moving forward? You're going to have actual policies that convince Americans to vote for you. Someone like James Carville has been screaming that from wherever he lives these days, screaming it to his own party. It's like, we've got to find a foothold. And he's the guy who got Bill Clinton elected twice. Maybe they ought to listen to him. I don't know. But I found this clip, and I thought it was kind of funny, Kurt. Donald Trump explains Trump derangement syndrome. Have you seen this clip?
I have not. Here it is.
Fire a lot. Our moms are standing for things that often the media attacks them on. We'd love to get some advice from you about running for office.
Yeah, so I would say don't do it.
No, run for office. We want you to run for office.
I do say this, though. It is nastier to run as a Republican than it is. Now, I'm the ultimate, they suffer from a thing called TDS. Do you know what that is? Yes. TDS, it's a horrible, horrible terminal disease. It destroys the mind. It destroys the mind before the body, but the body eventually goes. TDS is Trump derangement syndrome. They have it at levels. They can't even stand their life. They can't stand anything. And, part of the reason is I won an election which everybody said couldn't be won.
Just some advice, because you come under fire.
Explaining Trump derangement syndrome. So we have Donald Trump as the president now. You could have had 4 more years of Joe Biden. Remember, Joe stayed in there. He was in the debate. He says, I'm running. And he had to face plant for Nancy Pelosi to go down to the White House and give him the hook. Okay, so he's out there now. We talked about why, because you've got all these journalists on the left who are writing books who are saying, how did we miss this? Where's the cover up? Who knew what when? Like, first of all, there's no cover-up. We talked about it for at least 2 years, if not longer. There was no cover-up. So he's out there now. He does an interview with the BBC, right? not even an American outlet, the BBC.
Traitor.
And, and he speaks out about the war that he's responsible for starting. Mm-hmm. You got to love it.
Let's turn to Ukraine, can we? Because you compared the war in Ukraine with the Second World War. President Trump is now saying, look, if you want peace, Ukraine is going to have to give up some territory. Some people think that is common sense to say that. Do you think it's not common sense? It's perhaps modern day appeasement?
It is modern day appeasement. Look, listen to what Putin said when he talked about going from Kyiv into Ukraine. And why? He can't stand the fact
that... As an edit right there.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah. You listen to the breath, you can hear it.
Going from Kyiv into Ukraine. And why? He can't stand the fact that the Russian dictatorship that he runs, that the Soviet Union has collapsed. And anybody thinks he's going to stop is just foolish.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there are a lot of other clips of that particular appearance where they didn't edit it very well because he goes into a hacking attack and, you know, right. And there are areas where he gets lost in what he's going to say. But I pulled that for a reason because one of the areas that they talk about is Crimea. Okay, I want everybody to remember that Putin went into Crimea when Barack Obama was president and Joe Biden was the vice president. When Donald Trump was the president in the 4 years between Obama and Biden, Putin didn't go anywhere. And he didn't go into Ukraine the second time until Joe Biden botched the Afghanistan withdrawal. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what Donald Trump is telling Ukraine right now is, look, you lost Crimea. He's in an area where he thinks he legitimately should be as far as Russians, right? You know more about that than I do.
Ethnic Russians.
Russians. So why don't you just take your cards and let's work together on this mineral deal, which they finally signed. Let's get that done. Now, if Joe thinks this is the equivalent of World War II and Putin is Hitler, why didn't we go in with boots on the ground? Why wasn't there a D-Day invasion? Why are we not at war with the Soviet Union or Russia? Why, you know, if he really believed that, which he doesn't, he just wanted a stalemate. And it took billions of our dollars going in for weapons. And Joe Biden, if he were elected and, you know, somebody would make the decision, he wouldn't. But we would continue to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything is so much easier, whether you're talking about history or current, you know, global politics, if you can just paint good guy, bad guy, white, black, then that's it. You don't have to make a real argument for what you're doing. You don't have to get into the weeds with the American people. You can just say, well, this guy's like Hitler, you know, or whatever. You just make it as cut and dry as possible, as simple as possible, and then people will just buy into it. You just make the Hitler comparison, make the Holocaust comparison, and then your work is done and you can do whatever you want.
And where is he going to go next? Because if he goes, I think Biden in that particular deal there said that maybe Poland would be next. Poland is a NATO member, right? And that trips Article 5, and that does get us into a shooting war with Russia.
But when has Putin ever once said that he wants to go into Poland?
Well, Biden thinks he does.
Right, but when has he actually ever said that? Yeah, he's never said that.
I think what in Putin's mind, if you played the game from his side of the board, he does look at the former Soviet Union, that they were in lots of places, and he would like to put the old Soviet Union back together. You know that.
Where are you getting that from, though?
Just my belief.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the Soviet Union collapsed.
The thing is, like, it's really not that hard to actually know people's motivations. Now, maybe he's not being like totally truthful. Like, you could say that, and that's a perfectly reasonable argument. But like, he will go out and say like, this is what we want, and this is what we're expecting out of this deal.
Yeah.
And like, he's not once said, we want to reestablish the Soviet Union, we want to take over Poland, we want to spread to Western Europe. Like, he's not saying any of these things. It's not reasonable to, in my opinion, to assume that he would even want those things.
Yeah.
So it's just like a total boogeyman argument to just be like, well, he's Hitler. He wants to conquer Europe. You know what I mean? And it's just not realistic at all.
Well, I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at the game board as it is today. And the way it is today, we've signed the rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine. It puts Americans on the ground over there working to extract. It gets payment made back to the United States for all the billions we spent that Joe Biden never would have asked for, right? It's like we're just a black hole of money and sinking in debt, as you know. So we get the money back, we put Americans there, and I think that does give Putin pause. I think he'd be done.
Yeah.
He's not going to shoot at Americans.
No, I mean, he would be foolish to do so.
That's leadership. What Joe Biden did was absolute non-leadership, the opposite of leadership. He caved in Afghanistan. It was a green light for all the bad actors in the world, including Putin, to do what they did. And now Donald Trump he has the job of trying to put the genie back in the bottle. So
what is rare earth minerals, by the way? Like, what is it like? Like, what minerals are we talking about?
I have no idea. Do I look like a geologist to you? I play George Strait records for a living. And I'm one of the few people, I think, who's actually read the Constitution and can argue the articles and the amendments.
Right.
But I don't know what a freaking rare earth mineral is.
I guess that was like a hypothetical question. But it goes to the whole thing of how much we simplify everything, right? Even that, it's like, well, we're going over there to get rare earth minerals.
It sounds like stuff we need. It sounds like it's valuable.
I don't even know what that means.
It puts Americans on the ground doing work in a country that has been a war zone, and I think that helps to get the Ukrainian people, their country built back up again, and we get the money that we gave them. I think everybody wins.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And that's what Trump looks for. Where does everybody win in this deal? And I think he doesn't get enough credit for stuff like that. All right. I do know we have an American Pope, too. Have we mentioned that?
We did mention that.
I think we mentioned that. All right. So let's talk about your mortgage, because, we another breaking news item here that we didn't talk about because it just happened before I got here is Trump has signed a deal with the UK, a trading deal, right? So their tariffs are going to be fine. And I think that's the first domino to fall. So the Dow took off, like up 500 points, because we're sitting on a lot of momentum here, but people are scared to death about what Trump is doing. But as these dominoes fall, I think you're going to see the economy really improve. And, you're going to see people wanting to get a mortgage, people wanting to get a house. So let's start with the mortgage piece first. And that mortgage can do a lot for you. And, if you're in a lot of debt, Chad Taylor can show you how you can use your mortgage to get out of debt. And of course, there's the buying the house part too. TheRedCarpetLender.com. That is my friend Chad Taylor. You don't need perfect credit. He can go as low as a 580 credit score. You don't need 20% down. Most loan programs these days are between 0 and 5% down. No cost or hard credit hit to see if a refinance makes sense to do. If you've been thinking about it, you know your financial situation better than anybody else. And wouldn't it be great to go into a situation where you're buying a house and know this is the house I can afford? It certainly narrows the field, doesn't it? Yeah, it gives you confidence when you go out. Chad will come to you. You can go to him. It all starts on his website, TheRedCarpetLender.com. He waives lender fees for veterans as a thank you for your service. Free appraisals for first-time home buyers, police and fire department employees, and all school district employees. He's a great guy, regardless of what I've said about him on the air or on this podcast, especially when I invoke the fact that he's a Raiders fan. Please don't hold that against him, because his carpet is not black and silver. His carpet is red. So I got him this close to being a Chiefs fan. So TheRedCarpetLender.com. That's my buddy Chad Taylor. Another friend of mine is Michael Schroer. And Michael's the guy that you go to after you see Chad. So here you are. You've got this form that says, I can afford this much house. And then Michael goes, here's my inventory. Here's what we can do for you. So they kind of work hand in glove. I don't even think they've ever met, but they work hand in glove. And they will do what needs to be done to get you in the house that you want. First-time home, expanded home, downsizing after the kids go to college, maybe a retirement home. Perhaps you've just found a piece of land. Maybe you got it in a will or something like that, and you want to build your dream home. He's really good at that. Michael Schroer, okay? He's with RE/MAX Elite in Lee Summit. Reach him on the phone there at 816-373-8400. His cell is 816-520-9342. Michael Schwerer. He will get the job done. They work together. It's kind of cool. All right, where were we? The Trump date. He does so much and so fast, it's hard to stay up with him. So I just put some bullet points here, and I know you've put some stuff in here that we can look at and take a look at. Top of the list here for me is Alcatraz. He's like, let's reopen Alcatraz. We'll put the worst criminals there, and if they manage to get out, a shark will eat them.
Quote, rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them away from anyone they could harm. That's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. That is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz, in all caps, to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. We will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges that are afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. The reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I guess
seems like it'd take a lot of money to get that done.
Yeah, because have you ever been there?
I've seen it from I haven't gone out to it, but I've seen it from the shore, I guess.
We went there once. It's pretty cool, but it's like a museum now.
Yeah.
So it would take a lot of money, because I don't think there would be a lot of issues if they just reopened it as is, because it's like, very old and rusty and rickety, so they'd have to retrofit everything and, rebuild the whole thing, basically, probably maybe even tear it down. So
some of this
it'd be
stuff,
a lot of work.
I think he just throws it out there to give the Democrats something to be against.
Yeah, this is like making Canada the 51st state or buying Greenland, that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah. So next topic, paying illegals to leave. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
Basically, give you $1,000 and leave. That it costs a lot more for us to come find you and kick you out. So get where you're going. Give us a call, and we'll send you $1,000.
There's a quick Fox News clip that kind of explains it.
To you. So Fox News can report exclusively that DHS will announce today that they're going to start paying for the commercial flights of illegal aliens who self-deport from the U.S. And on top of that, they're going to pay them an additional $1,000 stipend once they're confirmed to have left the country. Now, DHS says doing this is going to be significantly cheaper for the American taxpayer. They tell us that right now it costs on average about $17,000 to arrest, detain, and deport someone. They say paying for self-deportations and the stipend will only cost about $4,500 per person. That's about 70% cheaper. Aliens are going to have to register to self-deport on the new CBP Home app to access that DHS financial assistance, as well as announce their intent to leave the country. DHS Secretary Chris...
they got to download an app and are we really? Come on. I don't know. Are we really expecting them to do all that?
Bill Malhusian from Fox News, my wife thinks he's attractive. What do you think?
At that. Look at that face. He's doing blue steel right there. I mean, look at this hair. Impeccable hair.
Yeah.
What is that called? The widow's peak?
I was thinking that's the
hairline.
Jesse Waters hairline.
What a hunk.
Yeah, he's... Okay, fine. Let's move on. Reinstating student loan payments. Oh, my God. They haven't had to make payments since COVID. And you know how it is on the Democrat side. Whenever something like that happens, it's in there permanently. We got rid of it because of the pandemic. Pandemic's gone, but you'll never have to make a payment again. Donald Trump gets elected and said, I think we'd like our money back.
Mm-hmm. Here's a statement from the press secretary.
In other news, the Trump administration has announced we will put an end to Joe Biden's illegal student loan bailout attempts. No student loan has been referred to collection since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans. The student loan portfolio controlled by the federal government is nearly $1.6 trillion. But fewer than 4 out of 10 borrowers are in repayment. This is unsustainable, unfair, and a huge liability for American taxpayers. Debt cannot be wiped away. It just ends up getting transferred to others. So why should Americans who didn't go to college or went to college and responsibly paid back their loans pay for the student loans of other Americans? The Trump administration will never force taxpayers to pay student loan debts that don't belong to them. Student loan borrowers need clarity, and we're finally giving it to them. Borrowers will now be clearly expected to repay their loans, and those who default on their loan obligations will face involuntary collections.
Wow.
The government can and will collect defaulted federal student loan debt by withholding money from borrowers, tax refunds, federal pensions, and even their wages.
How mean. That is just so mean.
Yeah, well.
When did we become such a mean country, making people repay a debt that they signed to repay? And don't get me started on that PPP thing. I'm not even going to go into that argument anymore because you're just dead wrong when you bring it up, you people. So SCOTUS matters. We talk about this all the time. These district court judges out there, the ones who've actually read the Constitution, they know what they're doing is wrong. All they're trying to do is delay. So they put out a restraining order. The Justice Department, on behalf of the administration, has to go to court and say, no, this is what we're doing, blah, 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 blah. And it eventually gets to SCOTUS, and he's got a really good record at SCOTUS. And the latest on that is the president, the commander-in-chief of the military of this country, can exclude transgenders from the military.
Yep. That just happened the past couple days, right? I think I just saw that one.
Our military is not a social experiment. And that's what Democrats turn it into every time they get power. DEI, transgenders, lowering the bar for people who want to be in the military. I'll tell you this, if you could make the bar here and you can do what you need to do in the military, I don't care what you are, right? But unfortunately, when Democrats get in there, they're like, well, you know, we got women in here, so we need to lower the bar. I want a military that is ready for action to kill people and break things when needed. That's what the military is.
Well, you kind of brought up a good point there. I think the next step is probably getting women out of the military, or at least out of combat. That would be the next step.
That may well happen. And there are going to be people are going to howl about that, but they howl about everything anyway. So what's one more thing to howl about? And before you get on us about misogyny and all that, you people on the left are the same people who say that if Kurt decided he wanted to be a woman, as bearded as he is and all that, you probably have some college basketball eligibility. You could play on the girls' team.
Yeah, I don't even have to shave my beard.
Yeah, or maybe you're a swimmer. Would you like to be a women's swimmer?
I'd have to shave my legs. That's
No, you don't. No, you don't. It's a social construct. Yes. You just go in and say, I am what I am.
No, not because of the women thing, but because swimmers shave their legs.
Oh,
for more aerodynamic or whatever.
Yeah, so you can swim faster. I get all that. Okay. So now that the border is secure, and I think we could agree that it is, the illegal immigration, they know. They've gotten the memo. It's like, if we go, we're screwed. So, and people are leaving in droves, and I think people are taking advantage of Trump's, we'll give you $1,000 to leave and all that. So can we finally have a rational discussion about legal immigration? Because in the past, it's been close the border, and then we'll have a rational discussion. You can't do it. You can't open the border, let in a bunch of illegals, and then say, okay, now we want to have a rational discussion. And all these people who got here, we need to find a way to get them to citizenship. That was bogus from the beginning. So let's play the clip of Donald Trump running for election and his views on legal immigration.
Be taken away. They won't be taken away.
Mr. President, ex-president. So a lot Latin people believe in you, and I know a lot of dreamers right now can work legal. What is your plan with that people that right now works legal in this country because they are?
You mean coming in legal? Oh, we're going to have a process to come in. We want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. We don't want people that are murderers, that are drug dealers, coming in from jails. We don't want that. We want people to come in, but we want them to come in through a system legally. And we're going to open that system up. We need people. We need workers. We need a lot of people. And we want them to come into our country, but we don't want to come in from prisons. We don't want gang members that Venezuela gives us the MS-13 gang members. We don't want that.
No, we want the best and the brightest, people who want to come to America and become Americans. And we've had waves of that over the years from various parts of the world. Germans like me, the Brits, obviously, the French, Italians, Irish have all come to this country from various parts of the world. We want the best and the brightest. And there's a couple of reasons for that. U.S. birth rate is at a near record low. This generation of folks, you aside, has decided they don't want to have kids. That's going to be a problem.
Yep.
Going to have a lot of job openings. We have a lot of job openings now. On top of that, people don't want to work who live in this country. I've never seen anything like this. It's getting worse, and it almost makes me feel like I'm the boomer, right? Boomer. Oh, actually, I'm on the border of boomer and Gen X because I'm 1963. So I'm at the end of the baby boom, but not quite to Gen X.
So you are a boomer, is what you're saying?
I'm a boomer.
Yeah.
I don't care. I like being a boomer. There's a lot about it I like. What I don't like is looking at folks who do not want to work. So there are 2.1 million people in this country right now. First of all, there's like 6.7 million who are just sitting on the sidelines. 2.1 million of them are taking benefits to sit on their ass. I don't like that. I think we should make that harder.
Yeah. I mean, unless you have a legitimate medical reason or, something like that you need help. I mean, I don't think we shouldn't help people in any way, but you have to, for us to help you, you have to help yourself.
I'm not talking about disabled people or any level of disability.
No, you're talking about like unemployment compensation.
Exactly.
And stuff like that, yeah.
Sitting on their ass, taking unemployment benefits. And they're like, well, I paid for them. I'm going to take them. We need you at work, okay? We should make it harder to do that with job openings now and in the future. Mike Rowe talks about this lack of a work ethic, and I assume he's a boomer too, right?
Probably, yeah. I don't know how old he is, but I think he's maybe around your age. This looks like an old clip.
It is an old clip.
Job available, but if everyone can do it, the job remains unfilled.
5.6 million jobs exist right now as we're talking. 5.6 million jobs, 75% of which don't require a 4-year degree. When people talk about, why the skills gap exists, it's almost, how can it not exist? We took Votech out of high school. At the same time, we told an entire generation that their best hope for success was a 4-year degree.
Right.
So the most expensive path becomes the best path for the most people. At the same time, all these other jobs, which are linked to this very fundamental form of education, are completely marginalized because we send a really powerful message. You don't just take vocational technical training out of high schools and that be the end of it. That sets all kinds of dominoes in place, and none of them are pretty, and they all fall down.
There you go. It's Mike Rowe. It's an old clip, but it's a problem that exists still today.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into the immigration thing too, because it sends a message too to bring in more people, even if it's legally. You're sending a message now that, okay, we have all these jobs, but we don't need you. We'll just bring in foreigners. We'll just bring in foreigners to do the jobs that you don't want to do. You don't have to get off your ass. We'll just bring in foreigners. We'll make it AI, And it's just like, to me, it's just we're giving up on the American people and not, instead of actually trying to increase vocational training or increase, just the overall morale of our country, we're just bringing in the rest of the world. And, it's true that America is like a melting pot, unlike other places, but that doesn't mean that we don't have an identity. That doesn't mean that there's no such thing as an American. And we don't all know what that means. We all know what that means. We know what an American is. We know what language we speak.
Yeah.
We know, for the most part, our heritage or our shared heritage. So it's still true that like bringing in people from the rest of the world, and certainly like the third world, is going to necessarily dilute that. You can't just replace a problem here by just bringing in other people, whether it's legally or illegally. I think we need to really focus on fixing the problems in America and really uplifting the American people, politically speaking, before, we worry about bringing in a bunch of other people.
Well, I think it's complex and you can do more than one thing at the same time. So we'll move on. Royal Roofing and Solar. They're ready to replace the roof on your house just like they replaced the roof on my house. Get them up there and take a look at that roof. We've had a lot of spring storms and spring rain. If you've noticed like a brown patch on your ceiling, that means you probably need a new roof. Get Austin Watterson and his team out. They'll do the free roof inspection for you. And if you're a candidate for it, they'll put solar in, and that will change your whole dynamic there. You'll be able to tell Evergy you don't even need to bother to send a bill, or maybe it'll be a credit bill, something like that. But get the facts before you move forward, and definitely get them out there looking at your roof if you're in the market for that. RoofedByRoyal.com, Royal Roofing and Solar. You can reach them at 816-540-7057. They did the roof on my house, and they are ready to do the roof on yours.
Also, at the top of their website here, it says we are now servicing the St. Louis, Missouri area. So if you know anyone in St. Louis who's looking for a new roof, hit them up.
Yep. Well, we've got a big footprint here with the podcast. It's growing, so tell your friends that Royal Roofing and Solar is also growing. Funhouse Pizza, 2 locations, Blue Springs and Lee's Summit. We are going to be at the Lee's Summit location on May 20th with a live podcast event that night, talking about the state's response to the mess that we have in Jackson County. I think if you live in Jackson County and you're furious about everything from your tax bill to the fact that you'd like to recall Frank White, it's going to be the night for you at the Lee's Summit location on 50 Highway. Jim Dingman does a great job. He's an awesome host with fantastic pizza, cold drinks, lots of fun things for the kids to do. And again, he hosts our live events. So we're looking forward to seeing him and seeing you at Funhouse Pizza on 50 Highway in Lee's Summit. And again, he also owns the one in Blue Springs on 7 Highway. So I have kind of a sinking feeling here. And you brought it up either last time or the time before when we talked about the difference in the bills between the Senate and the House, that the House had agreed on a $1.5 trillion reduction in spending over 10 years, and the Senate was, I think, at like $400 billion. I mean, the difference was like stark between the two chambers. And you raised a good point. Why does it have to take 10 years? Why can't we just do some of this stuff now? Well, they're backing away from the $1.5 trillion now. There's only Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, is about the only one who believes in this. Let's fix this mess now as much as we do. The rest of the Congress, they're like fading. You know, it's like we talk about this for 4 years. We talked about this, that Democrats are running toward the cliff at breakneck speed, and Republicans are doing it at the speed limit.
Yeah.
The destination is the same. What we're doing is not tenable. And I don't know, man. I'm losing my mojo on this.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, the debt is definitely one of the most blackpilling issues, if you will, because there is no real plan to address it. And anything that is presented is just like 0.1% over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
And it's because they are scared to actually address the problem, because it affects their bottom line.
Right.
It affects their reelection, and they care more about that than they do about, fixing the problem. So,
and I'm not shocked. You shouldn't be shocked that every cut that's mentioned by Doge, they go to the microphones, Democrats do, and they scream like they've been, massacred here.
Yeah.
So,
and they'll do that about an incremental decrease in the increased budget.
Exactly.
So instead of going up by 5% every year, we're only going up by 2% every year.
But
and
we're
then
going
they'll
up.
Still come out and say that you're throwing granny off a cliff or whatever.
Exactly.
So,
starving children.
As soon as you give into that, and as soon as you just acknowledge and play by their rules, you're just losing right out of the gate. I mean, don't even bother. Just ignore it.
I want to ask them, what would you cut? I mean, surely... And I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I should just drop this. But I keep looking at it, and I look at it like we spend $2 trillion more a year than we take in, and we've got a almost $37 trillion debt hole right now, and it just keeps getting bigger. At what point is it an emergency? At what point does it matter? What are you going to cut? And I don't know that you could get a Democrat on the record to make any cut.
Yeah. Well, sadly, I mean, this is where kind of the negative outlook really, where the rubber hits the road, because I think sadly it's not going to become an emergency until it's too late. It's not going to become an emergency until the US dollar really starts to tank.
Yeah.
And until China owns like our entire economy, which they almost do already. But until it really gets there, until people like start not being able to buy food or not being able to afford their house payments or whatever, like until it starts to get really bad. And at that point, it's too late. I mean, what are you going to do? So buy Bitcoin.
I don't know. Maybe it's time for a new Doge director. I would nominate my personal finance guru, Dave Ramsey.
Oh, muted.
Of $36 trillion of debt. And how would you budget it? I wish Trump had you on the Doge team.
Yeah, no, I don't fit in anything in D.C. It is kind of fun to watch them take a machete to the ridiculous spending. For sure. I mean, it's a funny question, but the truth is that running a government of any size, the state of Tennessee, for instance, the last several governors I've been friends with, and it's a different endeavor to run something like that than to run a business or run your personal account. The principle of being debt-free still stands, and it's a good principle, and the principle of living on less than you make still stands, and the principle of good management or good frugality still stands. So, I mean, I can give you an opinion, but it's probably worth exactly what you paid for it.
Would your
The snowball is what she led into that with. Yeah. Do you know much about Dave Ramsey? And
yeah, I've listened to him a little bit.
Yeah,
I've got a couple friends that like swear by him. Hey,
well,
Chris,
like me,
he's probably watching.
Yeah,
like you, and like my friend Chris, who always talks about Dave Ramsey.
I met Dave Ramsey once at a seminar in Nashville, and I was married to my second wife then, who, if I'm the Dave Ramsey follower, she's the complete opposite, because she was the spender in the relationship, and it may have been one of the problems.
They usually are, aren't they?
Yes, my current wife, Amazon never seems to miss my house. But I went up to him and I said, my wife hates you. And he laughed and he said, I get that all the time.
Yeah, I bet he does. Yeah.
So, I don't know that it would work on the federal level, but certainly in these uncertain times, it is a good idea to be debt-free to the extent that you can. And the snowball thing really does work. I did it myself, where I had a lot of credit card debt and I had a car and all that. And I just went, smallest to largest. I knocked out the small ones, put those payments on the next thing, and the next thing you know, boom, I'm debt free except my house, and I got it on a 15-year mortgage. It takes a little work, it takes a little discipline. It's harder in your stage in life because you got 2 little kids, and you got the house here, and you got stuff that you're working on here. But ultimately, with everything that's coming, it's best to be as debt free as you can be.
Yeah. And I think, even at my stage too, it's just not taking more debt to do it. I mean, obviously a mortgage is debt, right? But
Sure.
like in terms of house improvements or, things for the family or whatever, doing that within your means. And if it means that it takes a year or 3 years to complete the renovations on the house, then so be it. We're living here, it'll be fine. So not really getting over your skis and just like, well, let's just take out a loan, and we can get the improvements done. That's a bad idea.
Well, I told you about the estimate I got for the rock work in my backyard. I think the first estimate was $35,000.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing the rock project.
Yeah.
And rock is not very expensive. It's the labor, it turns out, that's the expensive part.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to, I don't think we have any sponsors that do this. So before I start trash talking, but like even some of the home improvement stuff, like HVAC. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of things that are relevant in HVAC. You can't install your own HVAC system unless you really know what you're doing. That's very difficult. But then you have like duct cleaning and stuff like that, or like cleaning like the valve or the tube that comes out of your dryer. People will charge you like $100 a foot to do that.
Wow.
And it's just like it's a tube. Like you just take it off and like vacuum it out. You know what I mean?
Well, I know what I'm going to ask you to do right after this podcast episode. You can come over, I'll shovel the rocks, and you can clean out my ducts.
Well, they'll charge $100 a foot. I'll do it for $80 a foot. How about that?
Doesn't seem like much of a discount, Kurt. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on here, but it's the principle of being debt-free to the extent that you can is very important, and I would still nominate Dave Ramsey to be the new Doge director. Dale's Body Shop, you got a problem there? I mean, you've hit a deer or something, or somebody's run into your car. You know what Dale Reynolds told me a long time ago was, make sure you park into the wind. He said, you have no idea how how many like sprung doors I've had to fix in my career, because you basically park with the wind behind you. You get out, if you had this happen to you, and it like takes your door and just goes like that.
Oh, yeah.
So park into the wind. That's a tip that Dale Reynolds told me a long time ago.
Nice little tip there.
When you do get in an accident, the wrecker's going to ask you where we're going to take this thing. Take it to Dale's Body Shop. Dale's in Blue Springs. They're right on 40 Highway, where they've been for decades. Fixing cars, taking care of customers, taking care of you. That is the motto that Dale's Body Shop has. They fix cars all over the metro. Even police departments on the Kansas side know that Dale's Body Shop is the place to go. They are local, and your dollars stay here. Everything they do, like the parts they get and all that, that's all local. And if that means anything to you when you've been in a wreck, make sure you tell them to take that vehicle to Dale's Body Shop. You want to do something cool with your vehicle, get it restored. Dale's Body Shop can do that as well. Works hand in glove. A lot of our sponsors do. Dale's works very well with Bob Watson, Blue Springs State Farm agent for 5 decades. He's been my agent for over 30 years now, and there have been several times, either me or my kids, and you'll learn this when your kids start driving, and that will come in a flash, Kurt. You'll think, my gosh, they're just toddlers right now. One's a baby. They're going to be driving before you know it, and
with all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
And what boys in particular do is they run their cars into things. And that's why you need Dale. That's why you need Bob. 7th and Main in Blue Springs for Bob Watson, State Farm agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Bundle your home and car insurance, and you'll save even more. We thank Bob. We thank Dale. We thank all of our other sponsors here for being part of our podcast. So we know we have a pope. We know it's Leo the 14th. An American pope for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That is really going to, I think, energize American Catholics. I'm energized.
Is he good? I mean, I don't really care that much, to be honest, but I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out more about him. We're going to find out why the Cardinals put their faith in him to be the next leader of the 1.4 billion Catholics out there. And we were going to do this segment if we didn't have a pope yet, but we might as well because we've got it there. There have been a couple of images that have been released. One of them was on Donald Trump's account, and they asked him about it, and he said he had nothing to do with it. I find that hard to believe because it was on his account.
Yeah, he's lying.
Is he lying about that?
Yeah.
Why would you lie about that? I mean, it's goofy. There were people who had their nose out of joint. And it's funny, I put it up on the podcast page, and some of my friends have their panties in a twist about it, and I know for a fact because they go back to Indiana with me, they're not Catholic. My Catholic friends think this is funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
are you offended by it as a non-Catholic?
No. I mean, I think it's like silly or whatever, but
yeah,
I'm offended, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, so then there was another AI image that came out.
Well, this is a video.
Oh, you got the sleeper pic?
No, this is
that is awesome. Ah, yes. This is why you have to, watch the video on YouTube because of funny stuff like that.
And then this is the one of Biden. He's sleeping.
Well, and some of my friends on the left who hate Donald Trump and look for anything to gig him on say, oh, it was Trump that fell asleep at the Pope's funeral, not Joe Biden.
Did he?
He did fall asleep a little bit.
That's hilarious.
Who cares? Why can't we move on from all this stuff? That is kind of funny. I think even Joe, being a Catholic, would have laughed at that. We know that by the rules, and we're all sticklers on the rules, that Donald Trump was never going to be Pope. Joe wasn't going to be Pope because he's over 80, right? I think of the three, I'm the only one who had eligibility. Male Catholic under 80.
It's true.
All right, fine. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. White smoke, not black smoke. We had the white smoke come out. All right, until we see you on May 20th. That's going to be the next version of the podcast, May 20th at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit. Please come. It's going to be a great time. Until then, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.